Today, we're going to be exploring love, life, and healing through the doorway of now. This is Dr. Emmett Miller. Today's is a very experiential presentation. We will learn something about that all-important tool of selective awareness and how to apply it to create the meditative state. We'll also see how selective awareness can be used to create guided imagery. And we'll focus that guided imagery on the experience of love, life, and healing. Following this, we will draw upon our inner wisdom and spiritual guidance with the goal of continuing to transform our lives in the direction of healing, wellness, optimal performance, love, and joy. One of our primary goals in life is to learn how to free ourselves from past inhibiting emotions and distractions, how to take charge of our lives and confront the really important challenges that lie ahead of us. Taking charge of your life is the very first step. And to do that, it's very important to be able to relax and enter the present moment. Much of our culture, our media, our television, radio, internet, social media, all of this is about trying to prevent us from doing exactly that. Their goal is to attract us, but by attracting us, they draw us away from this very experience. Again, as I've said, there are literally hundreds of thousands of attention engineers who have gotten PhDs in how to attract our attention, to get us away from thinking about something else, to get our eyeballs to roll over to their part of the page, because that's the only way they'll be able to sell us on their product or their candidate or whatever it might be. And that's their goal. Now, my goal is to be in charge of my life, is to bring healing and love to myself and to those who love. And really, for me, it is how to share that with as many people as possible, since it's clear how the world is headed. Unless we pull together, then we're unlikely to get to where we really want to go. Yes, we have to hang together, lest we have to hang separately. So the first step is to enter the here and now. That is to let go of thoughts about the past, thoughts about the future, and thoughts about other places other than the place where we are at this physical moment. This means quieting down your limbic system. The next step is to take charge of your thinking and to focus your mind on finding a healthy balance and a new direction in your life. As you know, there are two different parts of your mind that we focus on. One part is the subconscious mind, which dwells in an evolutionarily very ancient part of the brain. It's called the paleomammalian cortex. It's called paleomammalian because it functions very much like a similar part of the brains of lower animals, such as squirrels and dogs, monkeys. The function of this part of the brain is to ensure our survival in life or death situations. It has other functions too, but this is one of its most important, because if it fails on this one, something comes along and eats us up. Game over, dude. So whenever this part receives messages that there's a threat, it throws our systems into a fight or flight stress mode that creates tension in the body, creates anxiety, creates anger, and in addition, it secretes emergency hormones such as adrenaline, cortisol, and other inflammatory stress chemicals, which flow into your bloodstream and begin to turn your body into a factory for producing glucose so that you can fight off the tiger or the whatever it is that's about to kill you. So these are very, very useful hormones and a very, very useful function if you are physically in danger of being killed in the next few seconds. And those hormones dissolve the organs of the body to produce glucose for the purpose of energizing you in hand-to-hand combat. The other part of your mind, the one you're more familiar with, is your conscious mind. When functioning, it is intentional, analytic, organized, and creative. Its home is in the neocortex, particularly in the prefrontal part of the neocortex. And it is, evolutionarily speaking, a much more recent development of the brain. This is the part of your mind that you must use wisely to analyze and creatively solve the problems that you are facing. Unfortunately, at times of great turmoil, such as when there's an economic loss, or if you lose your job, or you have a big argument with somebody in your family or someone you care about, or if you lose your cat, those are the kinds of turmoils that we face. And yet, a stress reaction is triggered in the limbic system because a monkey mind can't tell. All it knows is there's a threat, so it goes into bam, bam, bam. This reaction produces all your stress symptoms, blocks the functioning of your higher conscious mind. That's the really important piece of it. It's so crucially important, and why it is so valuable to simply learn how to quiet your mind, to meditate or use self-hypnosis or prayer, whatever does it. Because if you can't control your attention, it's going to be controlled by your environment. You end up being distracted by your emotions, by your worries, and then escape behaviors happen. Like you withdraw from the situation, or you have maladaptive habits and addictions because your system wants to get away from those feelings. And as long as you think there's a threat, those feelings will come up. So your brain says, okay, well, we'll get you involved in something else. It really doesn't understand how it all works out here. So our challenge is to relax and to quiet the unproductive thoughts that originate in this monkey mind, as I affectionately refer to it, this subconscious. Once the distractions are gone and your mind is clear, then you can use your selective awareness to focus on making wise choices and motivating the kind of thinking that will help you bounce back and deal with life with vitality and confidence. So, without further ado, here's the secret to taking care and taking charge of your mind and brain. So first, I'm going to ask you to experience your conscious mind, okay? And this is about selective awareness. Let's do it with an experience. Make a fist with either your right hand or your left hand. Now relax that hand. No problem, right? Using your conscious mind, you decided which hand to squeeze and then decided to perform the two tasks I suggested. Now touch your tongue to the roof of your mouth and think of a kind of fruit. Easy. Again, that's you using your conscious mind. Now, without moving, salivate. Cause saliva to flow into your mouth from your salivary glands by demanding it. You can't. Now speed up your heart rate without moving. Raise your blood pressure. Cause your stomach to get kind of queasy. You can't, because these behaviors are under the control of that subconscious part of your mind. And because you don't know how to control this part of your mind, you are helpless in creating certain kinds of behaviors that's very important for you to be able to create. And it's not that you can't do it, it's because most of us haven't learned how to do it. So in the next few minutes, I want to teach you how to speak monkey. That is, how to translate your conscious intentions into the language that that part of your brain understands. So to learn a little bit more about your conscious mind, I want you to follow along with me and simply guide your conscious mind, again, in the way I suggest. think about a helicopter. Notice how quickly you can bring a helicopter to mind. Now, quickly think about a piece of paper. Think about a pineapple. Think about the Eiffel Tower. Think about the name of the president of the United States. Think about a fish. What's your phone number? What country were you born in? How many fingers and toes do you have? No problem, right? Now, try to think about all of them at the same time. But you can't do it. Isn't that interesting? Your conscious mind is so powerful that you can instantly, at will, think of any one of millions of different things. But in any given moment, you can really only think about one thing deeply. Have you ever tried to carry on a phone conversation while someone in the room with you is asking you a question? You can't do a good job at that. In other words, your mind has great selectivity, but very limited capacity. Your mental life basically consists of a linear string of thoughts, one after another, and one at a time. You're walking along the street and you're thinking about what you want to buy in the store you're going to. And you notice a car that looks just like the one that Carl used to drive, but it's being driven by a woman with blonde hair. And you think, do blondes really have more fun? And you chuckle at your little joke and you notice a little tickle in your throat and you begin to wonder if you're catching a cold or COVID or a dangerous viral infection. And you notice a feeling of fear, a moment of fear and anxiety in your chest. And then you realize that you've walked past the store that you were headed to go to. And you never figured out your shopping list, and so on, and so on, and so on. That's the way our lives go. Thoughts flashing in and out like electrical charges. They flash on for a moment and are replaced by the next one. The ability to focus on a huge range of things, but only one at a time, is what I call the selective awareness property of the human mind. And I felt it to be such an important property that I titled my first book back in 1972, Selective Awareness. And that little example just demonstrated the way most people spend most of their waking hours, one distraction after another. And this distractedness tends to be even worse when we're under stress. And of course, it's this distractedness that advertisers and people who want to control our thoughts, cult leaders, you name it, those are the ones who want to distract us. And we are vulnerable to that. Now, let's use your selective awareness in a different way. This time, close your eyes for a moment. And I want you to think about a fruit. Think about a lemon. Picture it in your mind, a large, ripe, yellow lemon. And imagine you're holding that lemon in your hand and that you're standing in front of a cutting board. See the bumpy yellow skin of the lemon and turn it over so that you can see the place where the stem had been attached. And now imagine that in your other hand, you have a very sharp knife. You can see the bright reflections on its polished steel blade. Now, place the lemon on the cutting board and carefully cut it in half. Feel the pressure of the knife as it slices through the lemon, cutting it exactly in half. And watch the juice run out along the knife blade. Look at the cut surface of one of the halves of that lemon. Look, you've cut one of the seeds in half. Now slice that half lemon in half again. And look at that juicy quarter of a lemon in your hand. Lift it slowly toward your face and smell the cut surface. Notice the lemony fragrance. Now, open your mouth and bite into the juicy flesh of this ripe lemon. Feel your teeth sink into it and feel the sour lemon juice as it squirts into your mouth. And suck a little more juice out of this sour lemon, the juiciest lemon ever, filling your mouth with its sour lemony flavor. And what do you notice in your mouth? You're salivating. Now, Open your eyes. What you just experienced is that a normally subconscious action was initiated through the use of your conscious, intentional mind, through your intentional use of your selective awareness. Here's another example. Close your eyes and imagine you're walking through the large glass doors from the sidewalk onto the ground floor of a building in New York City. In front of you, you see the shiny steel door of an elevator. And as the door opens, you step into the elevator and turn around to face the open door. A couple of other people get on and the door closes. You feel a little lurch as the elevator starts moving upward. You look upward at the numbers above the door and notice how rapidly they're moving. 20, 30, 40, 45, 47, 48, 49, and you feel the elevator slowing down. 50, and you feel that little lurch as it comes to a stop on the 50th floor. The elevator door opens and you find you're on top of a roof in the middle of the city. There are other tall buildings around you. There are birds flying nearby overhead and a helicopter flying not much higher above where you are. Now, slowly walk over to the edge of the roof where you'll notice there's a low brick wall around the edge of the roof. You put your hands on the wall and you bend forward to look down. Far below, you see people walking on the sidewalk. They look like ants down there, and the cars look like little matchboxes crawling by. Now climb up onto the wall and stand so your toes poke out a few inches over the edge of the little wall. Now you can look down between your toes and see the people and the traffic 50 floors below. And if you lean over just a little further, very carefully, you can see all the windows going down the side of the building you're standing on top of. And now notice a little breeze coming up behind you that blows gently against your back. So you have to lean back a little bit to resist that breeze. And notice what you're feeling in your body. Your heart is beating faster. Your blood pressure has gone up. And you may feel that tension or queasy tightness in your stomach. So take a deep breath in. And as you let it out, let your body relax. And allow yourself to be back inside of this relaxed body and open your eyes. Once again, a simple demonstration that if you cluster your thoughts in a certain way, you can intentionally control the behavior of your limbic system and your subconscious mind. And this is exactly what the world is about out there, trying to control your subconscious mind. I don't always drink beer, but when I do drink beer, I drink Corona. They attract your attention. They'll pay Steph Curry $1 million to stand there and hold a basketball and say, when I finish playing basketball, I like to go home and to take a shower and a bath with this new bath soap. They got your attention, and then they slip in the notion of soap, and you're caught. Well, maybe not you, but enough people that can believe the advertisers make back more than that $1 million they spent for Steph. And so just as you were able to do in these very simplistic examples, I want you to learn how to apply those same principles for the purpose of quieting negative thinking and evoking the kind of thinking that will empower you in using your mind to the fullest. So how did we do it? We used our selective awareness to gain access to our imagination. Your imagination is the language you will use to communicate with your subconscious. And if you want to see how powerfully people's imaginations can work, why don't you think of, let's see, the political party that's the most opposite to the one that you tend to follow or believe in, and think of some of the things that they say. and think of some of their commercials and think to yourself, they are imagining that they're right. And they absolutely believe their imagination, although you probably have a feeling that it is just their imagination and it doesn't correspond to reality. But we want you to be in control of your imagination, because your imagination is the language that you will use to communicate with your subconscious. It works because your monkey mind can't tell the difference between reality and imagination. Now, here's a more useful demonstration of selective awareness. What would happen if you decided to think about the 20 worst strategies you can think of that have happened, let's say, in the last month or two? One after another for 5 minutes. Don't do it. You know what you would feel. Gee, the world's a terrible place. It's a painful place. It's a scary place to be. How are we going to survive this? Look at all these suffering people and look at the people who are supposed to be their leaders. How can people, and on and on and on. You begin to feel uncomfortable feelings inside. Nothing has happened. There's no snake there's no landslide, there's no saber-toothed tiger. And yet here you have feelings, fearful or angry or helpless or sad or anxious, because your monkey mind thinks that those terrible things are life or death threats. Some of them may be, but the monkey mind thinks you've got 3 seconds to respond to it. And therefore you go into the stress mode. And it stirs up the emotions and the chemistry to deal with that threat. The monkey mind doesn't have any sense of the difference between past, present, and future. To the monkey mind, everything is happening in the present. If, on the other hand, you were to close your eyes and think of the 20 most beautiful things you have ever seen, most spiritually moving experiences you've ever had, and refuse to let extraneous thoughts distract you, you would feel relaxed and happy and fortunate, very grateful. And the feeling you'd have in your body would reflect those emotions. You'd feel empowered and strong and hopeful, and the blood would flow to your internal organs and be very nurturing of them. Your unconscious mind, your subconscious, your monkey mind would be at rest, and you would be able to use your imagination more creatively. You'd be able to access your inner wisdom, and you'd be able to access that place where you receive your spiritual guidance. So in your everyday life, you're not intentionally choosing your state of mind. You're simply experiencing a series of thoughts. And so for most of us, then the monkey mind is doing a lot of choices in this direction. But now, even if you sit down and begin to try to think of something else, you notice your mind tends to wander to something else, because the brain has a natural negative bias, which was extremely important to our survival. So the unconscious is constantly scanning the environment, looking for a threat. And if it perceives a threat, maybe that threat is that you won't get number 1 in your class at the end of the next semester. That's the threat. And so it acts as though you need to protect yourself from being injured or killed. Since we're not in that kind of environment, it's important to learn how to become very relaxed and peaceful, and to enter this moment where you are right now, and to be here where you are right now at this moment, to reflect back on what my good friend used to say, be here now. You probably know. And of course, the person I'm talking about is Baba Ram Dass, who wrote that book, which I read for the first time back at the end, near the end of the 1960s. And I found it to be fascinating thought, although I wasn't able to do much with it, but it was fascinating. And as time passed on and I learned more, I realized how crucially important it is to be able to be here now. And so I'd like to share with you a simple but really profound way to meditate that I learned from one of my most revered teachers, Thich Nhat Hanh. It's called mindfulness meditation. So Just allow yourself to be seated in a comfortable position. Sitting or lying down, whatever is comfortable for you. Now, choose a point on the wall or an object in front of you and keep your focus there, or simply let your eyelids close and allow yourself to be aware of your breathing. The air comes in, the air goes out, and simply allow yourself to be aware of your breathing with no attempt to control it. Are you breathing in right now, or are you breathing out? Just identifying this is an in-breath and this is an out-breath. That's all. Now, what's recognizing your in-breath is your mind, your conscious mind. The object of your mind, that is, of your mindfulness, is the in-breath, and you are totally focused on it as other thoughts fade into the background. Breathing in, this is my in-breath. Breathing out, this is my out-breath. And as you focus on your out-breath is the object of your total focus. Breath follows breath, follows breath, effortlessly. Gradually, you notice your thinking begins to slow down. Slowing down. Your thinking beginning to vanish. And there's simply breathing in and breathing out. The past does not exist and can never exist again, and you have no need to think of it at this moment. Breathing in, breathing out. There's no future and never has been. There's only the ever-present now. Each fresh new breath is like the celebration of life, being with each breath. You are the only person that you can be at this moment, and you can accept it fully. And you are in the only place that you can be at this moment, a place called here. And this moment is the only moment that exists. Breathing in, breathing out. Allow it to continue. Good. And you may, if you wish, allow your eyelids to open now. And I'd like to share with you a collection of images that are presented in the form of a meditation. Let's see if I can get that to work. And what I want you to do is to, as if this is a meditation, you're being guided by these images. It's a story. Give yourself permission to experience the story as if it's actually true. And feel it inside each part of it. The goal is the experience of love, life, and healing. And we'll start that story at the very beginning.
Perhaps the best approach is to begin by stepping back and taking a look at the source of the life force, at its beginnings, as far back as we are scientifically capable of seeing. And the best science I know of takes us back about 13.5 billion years ago, to the time of the so-called Big Bang, the beginning of time and space as we know them. And the best of our knowledge tells us that in that first billionth of a second, the universe was a sea of undifferentiated plasma. That within the plasma, waves gradually formed, waves that condensed into elementary particles, and then hydrogen, and then, gradually, heavier and heavier elements that, in turn, slowly coalesced into nebulas and black holes, into stars and galaxies, including our own galaxy. That was about 9 billion years ago. And revolving around one of the minor middle-aged stars in that galaxy was planet Earth. And in those days, 5 billion years ago, this world was a hot, harsh, primitive, and very unforgiving place. It was a place of flaming volcanoes and boiling pools of lava that gradually cooled and hardened, giving rise to a vast, naked world of bare minerals, and gases, and waters. But nowhere was there any sign of life. Even the vast oceans were lifeless, yet they seethed with inorganic chemicals, combining with each other through polarization and ionic bonding. Ionic bonds are the way atoms interact in a lifeless, inorganic world such as this was. Ionic bonds, such as those which occur when two atoms, such as sodium and chlorine, for example, combine. In this process, the chlorine atom takes an electron from a sodium atom in order to complete its outer ring and stabilize itself. This action, however, converts the chlorine into a highly negatively charged chlorine ion, while converting the sodium atom into a positively charged ion, since it now has one fewer electron than it has protons. In water, all these highly polarized ions then separate from each other and float around, interacting with other charged ions, a situation not very conducive to the formation of the stable chemical compounds we associate with life. Just as in our daily lives, highly polarized attitudes do not produce lasting relationships. Then, into this bipolar world, along comes the carbon atom with a new idea. Instead of taking an electron from another element or having to lose one, carbon much prefers to share electrons with its neighbors. In this way, the outer rings from both atoms are completed, giving rise to their internal stability and balance, while at the same time not creating the highly polarized situation, such as is characteristic of ionic bonds. These are called covalent bonds, and they bond carbon tightly to its neighbors. The result? The possibility of much more stable compounds than were possible with ionized atoms. It was this new idea of covalently sharing electrons that made possible what we call organic chemistry, that led, in turn, to that otherwise highly unlikely phenomena we call living beings. This new, sustainable kind of relationship made possible larger molecules containing hundreds and thousands of atoms. I call it the urge to merge, that energy or force that thus created giant protein molecules, including that very special kind of giant molecule, the DNA spiral. And then, at some point, a group of these giant molecules decided to cling together and wrap a membrane around themselves, giving rise to the first living cell, a brand new entity on planet Earth, created by that same energy of holding together, that same urge to merge. This membrane was necessary for life to continue. The cell had to keep it intact so that the internal environment could continue to carry on the processes of life: respiration, ingestion, elimination, metabolism, and sustain homeostasis. Obviously, if the membrane were to be broken, it would have to be closed rather quickly, lest the essence of its life drain away. Thus, a membrane had to have a way to sustain this wholeness and repair itself if it is interrupted and restore its wholeness. This is the process we call healing, which is the strong tendency to maintain wholeness and balance. So life and healing are very closely related and may actually be the same thing or different expressions of the same deeper phenomenon, expressing this same essential urge to merge. And like this earliest cell, the very complicated bodies that we have still contain membranes, skin, and internal systems that must remain whole and that must heal from trauma back into wholeness. So when there's a trauma to the body, or a trauma to a family or a community or a nation for that matter, it gives rise to the need to quickly heal and become whole again, so that it does not lose that essence which maintains and sustains that life force. Another amazing thing about life is that it possesses the ability to reproduce itself, as that first cell did. And in time, as a result, soon there were lots of individual cells floating around, each one slowly mutating and becoming more unique, each one going its own way and doing its own thing, having essentially no relationship to the other cells around it. Then, one fateful day, instead of separating, the daughter cells of a dividing cell felt the urge to remain together and to function together, giving rise to the first multicellular organism, the first organism composed of individual cells functioning together as a whole. And again, we see that urge to merge at work, sustaining and healing the life force in action. You know this force. Can you feel it in your own desire to remain healthy and happy? In time, our scientific studies tell us, that same unifying force gradually gave rise to multicellular creatures of greater and greater complexity, with cellular specialization and the organization of subgroups of cells into organs and into organ systems, and evolving greater and greater diversity and intricacy. Creatures of great beauty and grace, with remarkable abilities. And with their ever-increasing capability of action, there developed higher levels of complexity and the need for a more complex system for coordinating the many organs and subsystems. So there arose the need for more complex information processing. For this special purpose, life invented the nervous system and the brain to sustain coordination, harmonious action, and wholeness. In other words, we need a complex brain in order to tell the foot which way to carry the body so that the hand could reach the food that the eyes have seen. Complex nervous structures that could create neural networks that were up to the task needed to be evolved. They need to allow for fluidity of motion and the ability to function in the water with elegance and on land, and with refinements that allowed them to overcome gravity and rise gracefully, to soar effortlessly through the clouds. And at the center of it all, acting invisibly, the fantastically intricate central nervous system ultimately responsible for maintaining balance, coherence, for sustaining wholeness and wellness. Can you imagine that this is simply another form of that same self-organizing principle that expressed itself as the covalence of organic bonds, an ever-evolving theme of wholeness and healing that plays within the nervous system like a beautiful melody, enabling the central nervous system to coordinate all the parts of the body and allow them to dance in rhythm with that melody, working through networks of cells, all communicating with each other chemically through neurotransmitter chemicals flowing across the synapses of neural networks, all in support of the sole function of having all parts work smoothly together, guided by a common purpose. Common purposes that might vary from serving a tennis ball to throwing a pot, from playing a violin or dancing to surfing, or doing a card trick, or texting a friend. Imagine the job of coordinating all these parts so accurately and with such synchrony, while still maintaining balance and coherency on the inside. Health. And as it evolved, the huge brain and nervous system of higher animals became able to express the urge towards sharing by sustaining wholeness and integrity in relationships with things and with others in the environment. Again, common purpose, oneness, and dynamic balance are crucial. Can you feel it at work here? That same force of holding together and functioning smoothly as a whole, that force that held together that first cell now holds together the members of the herd or family or community. In other words, that same force that creates health and wholeness within an individual is also responsible for creating health and whole relationships with respect to the environment and to others in the environment. It is a sensitive and responsive connection, this innate drive towards merging into a sense of oneness and shared purpose. And we see it most vividly in the higher animals, and especially the mammals. We see it in the extraordinary way they are guided from within to support each other and to gather in families and herds for the common good, to join together and to act together with like-minded and like-bodied others, to serve, to protect, and to band together as communities. Just as the carbon atoms found a way to share and join together in stable structures, just as organic molecules merged to create life, just as cells stayed together to create complex creatures, we see this same innate tendency among animals to form bonds that support common interest and function, interacting in a way that serves their shared values. And certainly nowhere is this life force more visible than in that incredible bond between mother and child. Have you felt this at some time in your life? can you allow yourself to feel it right now? What we human beings call love is the emotional experience of this urge to merge, and the absolute joy of being with those you love. How strongly can you allow yourself to feel it right now as you think of those you have loved? And one of the more dramatic expressions of this urge towards oneness, the drive to merge in love, to have and to hold, is that form of love that produces new life. Erotic love, passionate love for a person and the beauty within that person. And you know the power that attraction has. And you can also tap into your ability to feel filial love, the affectionate regard and friendship towards an equal. Agape, to will the good of another. And storge, or empathy, the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. And compassion, all forms of this same fundamental force. Can you feel it? Take a moment and imagine you can let yourself feel the love expressed in these images as you hold them in your mind. Feel it, and notice where in your body you feel it. And can you even experience interspecies love? Different though they may be, all these relationships, at their essence, have the goal of staying connected, of remaining together. And just as a damaged membrane requires healing, if the integrity of a couple or a group is broken, it must be repaired. Love, the healing process at the collective level.
Take a moment and close your eyes and reflect upon any positive feelings that came up for you. What images, what experiences of love or closeness with a person, a pet, friend, lover, or religious experience come up for you from your life? Love, the urge to merge, sense of connection, the sense of oneness. As we talked about in some of the previous presentations, having that feeling of being connected to others and being close to others is one of the best predictors of how long you'll live, how healthy you'll be, how much money you'll earn, how much you'll enjoy yourself. So all of that is about the wholeness, about love, about oneness. And allow yourself to be in touch again, those feelings, whatever is the strongest feeling you can find now in yourself of love. And notice where in your body you feel it most strongly. And then ask this place within you to give you a word or a phrase or a brief poem that can represent what that feeling is like for you. Could be the word love, but it may be another word for you. We want a word that will evoke this sense of wholeness and oneness, connection, the feeling And think that verbal cue as you stay in your memory and your experience. And put your hand on your heart as you think that verbal cue. And this will be an anchor, a cue that can bring you back to this feeling, this image. Or you can give yourself some other physical movement if you don't prefer to put your hand on your heart. But feel the physical movement, say the word to yourself, and let yourself be in that most loving whole image. Good. And while you're in touch with that feeling, let's see if you can think of any other times when you felt intimacy with the person, openness. Think of a time when you felt really included with a group or family, class or team. That both and feeling. Think of a time when you were in harmony with another, and maybe you were singing in harmony or dancing in harmony or speaking or enjoying or running, whatever it might be. Think of empathy, a sense of really caring about another being, truly feeling their feelings and caring, compassion. Just your own internal movie. And as you feel these experiences, let yourself feel a sense of gratitude. Gratitude. Good. And now, I want you to look forward into the future. Think of a person with whom you would like to be close, remain close, or become even closer. Someone with whom you feel a sense of love in this broader sense, maybe a brotherly love, but allow yourself to feel it. It's safe. And see if you can think of a group that you'd like to feel closer to, or to create closeness in, like your family, workplace situation. And allow yourself to be open. And feel yourself able to come from that place of love, that place of acceptance, oneness, intimacy. Feel the balance, the potential that's there. Anytime any unnecessary or negative thoughts come along, simply let them pass by. They're nothing but wisps of smoke. And what you are doing is so important. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. When there's a reaction, both are transformed. Imagine yourself helping to transform some group, some community, in any way that you can imagine. Now, just think of one situation in which you would like to be more loving, where you would like to be more safe, more able to sincerely be yourself. No hiding, expressing your truth, and giving connection a chance to happen. Deleting the unnecessary negatives that come along whenever they pop up. Remember, the monkey mind doesn't understand, and maybe you get closer than you usually do, but you know that it's safe because you're using the higher level of your mind. You're coming into the situation with wisdom. Wisdom is guiding your behavior. Imagine opening to the spiritual level of yourself, whatever that might be. Your deeper principles, what you live by. And imagine it guiding your behavior in this situation. This is the very powerful use of selective awareness. You've allowed yourself to be in touch with the essence of what love is, to feel it anchored within your body, and you've affirmed it by paying attention to it in this open way. And now you're choosing to take this forward with you into the future. You know how to meditate, how to come into the present moment. And when you do, you open up your ability to come from this place of love, if you choose to. If you choose to be negative or angry, you can still do that very well, if it's the right thing to do, from this place of presence in the here and now. Each time you do this, each time you come into the meditative place, each time you come into the here and now, every time that you use the wisdom of this place to make the choices in your life, to choose the words with you, when you allow yourself to be guided by your deeper self, by your spirit, by that spirit that moves through all things, you become more centered. You have more and more faith in yourself, in your intellect, in the higher levels of your mind. The monkey mind can still continue to inform you if there's a rattlesnake in the path or a piano falling out of a window above you, and you will move out of the way or do what you need to do. But now you have a way to eliminate the distractions, to allow you to discover more and more the truth of who you are, to discover your purpose for being here. And touch the ability to think rationally, to create effective strategies for dealing with the world, and the power to commit yourself to the wisdom and spirit and strategies, so that you speak and perform from this evolving center within you. Keep coming back. It works. And if you like, you can make a little agreement or promise to yourself what you're going to do with what you've touched today, what you've learned today, and perhaps even deciding to meditate on a very regular basis, gradually in your own time and in your own speed. Bring yourself back to attune to the world around you as your eyes open, enjoying the ability to see the colors that you can see. Notice how comfortable you feel. And I'd like to mention there's a couple of meditations that I've prepared that I think you'll find useful for increasing your learning and continuing the story I've started with you today. One's called the Love Meditation. And you can see these by going to shop.drmiller.com. That's shop.drmiller.com. The Love Meditation. My first writings on love itself are to be found in Our Culture on the Couch, which is a book. It's also, I think I'm also reading it. You can hear me read it. Our Culture on the Couch, 7 Steps to Global Healing. And then seeing how the principles of love apply on the global level. There's healing our planet. And on an extremely intimate level, there's sexual intimacy. And then I'm happy to say that our movie is still present online. This is at Amazon. You can see it. It's called Live Life, a wonderful story of actual people who've applied these principles in their life and brought about extraordinary things. And you can learn a lot more about the things that I shared with you and these processes by going to my informational website, which is drmiller.com. Thank you very much for spending this time with me. Until next time, namaste.